original amendment falls. In other cases, the committee must then proceed to adopt the original amendment as amended by the oral amendment. Yes, Mr. Aryan, please.
Oui, Monsieur le Président, je crois que sur les amendements, la question est beaucoup plus simple que ça. Le règlement dit expressément que pour qu'un amendement oral soit discuté, il faut qu'il soit adopté à l'unanimité. Très bien. À partir de là, cet amendement devient un amendement classique et tout à fait comparable aux autres amendements. Donc je crois qu'il conviendrait de dire, comme cet amendement a le même statut que les amendements classiques, c'est un vote ordinaire qui a lieu et pour qu'il soit adopté, il faut simplement qu'il y ait une majorité simple.
Thank you. You have a point of order? United Kingdom, please. You have the floor.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just want clarification on what you regard as unanimity. Unanimity, as I understand it, means that everybody is in favour of adopting an oral amendment. That means that not just a majority, but everybody is in favour of adopting it. That doesn't mean that one or two people must object. It just means that everybody has to be in favour, and that means no abstentions. Everybody is in favour. That is unanimity as I understand it.
Yes, the unanimity is needed when we are putting to the vote to consider that. After that, we put to the vote for adopting or rejecting. In that case, I think we take the majority.
That was not the procedure which you used this morning.
Yeah.
That was not the.
Yeah. This is why we made it clear that that was not in procedure that we used in the morning. This is why we came up with the suggestion, with some clarification.
Now, can I just follow that up? Because it's clear that it's not clear. What I'm trying to say is in order to have unanimity, everybody must be in favour of adopting the oral amendment. That means that there are no abstentions, there are no opposition, everybody is in favour. That is what unanimity is, everybody in favour. So if people choose to abstain or people choose to vote against, then it is not unanimous.
Yes, you are right. Yes, it is clear now. Please, Latvia. Please, microphone.
Sorry.
Microphone, please.
Yeah, if we're changing the rules now, then we should be re-voting the earlier amendment that we rejected. There was a vast majority in favor of it, and according to your own statement just now, that is what we should be doing.
Yes. Aryan, Nero, please.
Oui, Monsieur le Président, je crois que c'est très simple. Il y a deux phases. Il y a la présentation de l'amendement oral. Pour que l'amendement oral présenté puisse être examiné en séance, il convient qu'il y ait l'unanimité. Et ensuite, lorsque cet examen est autorisé, donc lorsqu'il y a unanimité pour la présentation, l'amendement devient un amendement classique, et à ce moment-là, c'est la règle classique d'adoption ou de refus qui s'applique, à savoir que pour que cet amendement soit adopté, il suffit d'une simple majorité. Pour la présentation, il faut que l'amendement oral ait recueilli l'unanimité, et pour l'adoption, il faut simplement une majorité simple. Je crois que les choses sont très claires.
maybe before making any clarification, I ask the floor to our friend from United Kingdom, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I won't take up the time of the committee at any length because I did speak this morning. I think, however, there are two issues. My colleague, Mr. Hendrick, raised an issue about the meaning of unanimity. That is one issue. The issue that we dealt with this morning, the issue that my friend Monsieur Neri has raised this afternoon, is how you deal with manuscript amendments. He believes, as I believed this morning, that it was a two-stage process. However, if that is contrary to the advice that you, Chairman, are receiving from the table, I suppose, following the normal traditions and procedures of Parliament, of parliaments generally, the advice of the clerks is taken. That doesn't necessarily mean that we as individual members have to necessarily agree with that, and indeed I believe, as I say, that my interpretation this morning and that of Mr. Neri's is correct, namely the two-stage procedure. If the advice given by the table is not accepted by the meeting, well then at the end of the day, I guess it is in the hands of the meeting itself.
So,
Otherwise, sorry.
so dear colleagues, I think it would be better just to follow the rule and regulation that we accepted in the morning. The way that we worked out, I think it is applicable now regarding any oral amendment when we will be considering or adopting. I think it is a best choice for the time being. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your understanding. Now we are going on amendments. Amendment 38. Yes, please.
We'd be very grateful if, in the light of that ruling, you could explain exactly what it means. And given that a little earlier in this current conversation, you suggested that the rules we were going to adopt this afternoon were different from the ones used this morning, why have you changed?
So the answer is that we use the same interpretation, the same role in the morning. Now we will continue the same way. Is it clear? But we voted for many oral amendments, and everybody is agree with that. I think let me finish on that, and let me continue, because I think the procedure is really clear in that. And we agreed in the morning. I think there will be no problem or no objection when we will be really considering according to the rule and regulation that we accepted. So let me move on Amendment 38. I call Mr. Gegamyan of Armenia to propose Amendment 38. Please, you have the floor.
Предлагаемая нашей делегацией поправка, она основана исключительно на 5 заявлениях президентов стран Минской группы ОБСЕ, президента США, России и Франции. Более того, эти поправки были одобрены со стороны руководства Армении, президента Армении, и что-то не было слышно голосов против со стороны азербайджанской делегации. Сейчас игнорирование этих поправок может навести на ложное толкование в целом процесса урегулирования Нагорно-Карабахского конфликта. Наш президент Серж Азатович Сарксян сказал, что они могут лечь в основу переговорного процесса. Кстати, пользуясь случаем, сегодня 60-летний юбилей президента Армении, я его поздравляю и желаю успехов в мирном урегулировании Нагорно-Карабахского конфликта на основе тех резолюций, тех деклараций, которые дали президенты стран Минской группы ОБСЕ. Думается, что американская делегация, российская и французская поддержат мое это предложение, потому что это исходило из их президентов. Спасибо.
Does anyone wish to speak against Amendment 38, please? Yes, Madam Muradova from Azerbaijan. Please, you have the floor.
Təşəkkür edirəm, cənab sədr. Özlüyündə Helsinki yekun aktının prinsiplərinin sadalanmasına qarşı biz çıxa bilmərik və amma öz fikrini əsaslandırmaq üçün Azərbaycan tərəfini ittiham etməyi qəbul edə bilmirik. Çünki Helsinki yekun aktının prinsiplərinin birini və yaxud da bir neçəsini əldə rəhbər tutaraq yalnız onu da millətlərin öz müqəddəratını təyin etməyə, xidmət etmək istiqamətində işlətməyi qəbul edə bilmərik. Əgər Helsinki yekun aktının prinsipləri ardıcıl olaraq biri digərindən doğduğu şəkildə təqdim olunursa, biz bunun lehinəyik. Yox, əgər onun hansısa biri, xüsusilə də sərhədlərin toxunulmazlığını, ölkələrin suverenliyini və ərazi bütövlüyünü pozmaq şəraitində təqdim olunmasını qəbul edə bilmərik, ona görə biz bu düzəlişin əleyhinəyik.
Thank you, Madam Muradova. Now I'd like to ask of opinion Madam Kaumas, please. Madam Kaumas, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's a fairly good amendment, and I would like to take it out of the context of only Armenia, but think of it as a general rule, so I think it's acceptable.
Thank you, Madam Kaumas. Now I shall put Amendment 38 to the vote. Will all those in favor of Amendment 38 please raise your voting cards? Okay, thank you. Will all those against this amendment please raise your voting cards? Thank you. Any abstentions? One abstention. The amendment is 38 adopted. Amendment 39. I call Mr. Slutsky of Russia to propose Amendment 39. Please, sir, you have the floor.
Господин Лихачев представляет эту поправку. Уважаемый председатель, уважаемые коллеги. Наше предложение в какой-то степени носит технический, политико-технический характер. Мы предлагаем после слова «соблюдение» добавить слово «всех» и удалить соответствующие слова «нерушимости границ территориальной целостности государств-участников». Почему? Такого рода редакция, которая предлагается российской делегацией, в полной мере отвечает тексту декларации принципов, касающихся взаимоотношений друг друга Хельсинского заключительного акта. Мы вносим логику. Все принципы международного права сегодня равноправны и должны приниматься в контексте друг друга. Это соответствует и известной резолюции Организации Объединенных Наций, Декларации принципов 1970 года. Прошу поддержать.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against this amendment? 39? No one wishes. No one. I'd like to ask the opinion of our rapporteur. Please, come, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I look at this amendment number 39 in parallel with the previous amendment number 38, and I think the Armenians 38 amendment is closer to my earlier original idea of how to write this down, and I think it's a comprehensive list of what we mean by this. So I prefer the amendment 38 to 39, and therefore I'm against 39.
Thank you. Now I shall put amendment 39 to the vote. Please, will all those in favor of amendment 39, please raise your voting cards. Thank you. Will all those against this amendment 39, please raise your voting cards. Thank you. Any abstentions? 1, 2, 7. It is defeated. Now we go on amendment 40. I call Mr. Zarubinski of Ukraine to propose amendment 40. Please.
Natalia Agafonova will present this amendment instead of Zarubinski. We propose to amend and insert the following words in this amendment, in this point, and add it with the words, and calls on the Russian Federation to reverse the annexation of the autonomous Republic of Crimea and the city of Sevastopol, Ukraine. Thank you for the support.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against Amendment 40? Please, Russian Federation.
Спасибо, уважаемый господин председатель. Мы, естественно, исходя из принципа объективности и справедливости, выступаем против этой поправки. Решение многонационального народа Крыма и города Севастополя опиралось на международно-правовые акты и на Всеобщую декларацию прав человека, в пункте 3 которой говорится о том, что главный инструмент, главная сердцевина, главная несущая конструкция демократии – воля народа. Народ Крыма, народ Севастополя эту волю проявил, определившись и вводя в состав Российской Федерации. Мы просим наших коллег очень внимательно озвучивать, анализировать действующий международно-правовой массив, не вносить в него, в его анализ субъективных элементов. Еще раз говорю, что слово «аннексия» здесь просто неуместно, и оно противоречит объективной реальности. Спасибо.
Thank you. What is Madam Kauma's opinion of the amendment? Please.
Dear Mr. Chair, I'm in favor of this amendment.
Thank you. I shall now put Amendment 40 to the vote. Will all those in favor of Amendment 40 please raise your voting cards? Thank you. Will all those against please raise your voting cards? Against? 3. 2 against. Any abstentions? 1 abstention. Now Amendment 40 is adopted. Now we have oral amendment. Amendment 41. The rapporteur, Ms. Kauma, is proposing on an oral amendment to Amendment 41. The effect of the original amendment would be to replace paragraph 24 with the text in the amendment. The effect of the oral amendment would be to leave the paragraph in place and add the text in the amended in addition to paragraph 24. Therefore, under the rules of procedure, we must commence the debate on Amendment 41 before considering the oral amendment. I call Mr. Now I call Mr. Kostunov of Russia to propose Amendment 41. Please.
Но мне сегодня придется за всю российскую делегацию работать. Поправка, она простая, ориентирована на уточнение текста, на логику нормативного документа. Прошу поддержать.
Thank you very much. Now the rapporteur, Madam Kauma, is proposing an oral amendment to Amendment 41. If the oral amendment is adopted, we then proceed to consider Amendment 41 as amended. As we established this morning, the oral amendment can only be considered if there is no objection. In addition, the oral amendment will only be adopted if there is no objection. If any objections to consideration or adoption are taken, the oral amendment will fall.
Ask Mrs. Kalmer what the oral amendment is.
Yes, please, Madam Kalmer, just propose your oral amendment.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. About the paragraph 24, I think that the original phrase that we have there is a fairly good one, but I would like to add the Amendment 41 made by Russia after that first phrase instead of replacing the first phrase.
Okay, thank you. Are there any objections to considering the oral amendment?
Point of order, Chairman.
Objection?
Point of order.
Point of order, please. You have the floor.
In answer to my question earlier about what constitutes unanimity, you agreed with my description, which is nobody votes against, and also there are no abstentions. You are now saying that a procedure that you adopted this morning, which was outside of the rules, is now continuing. Is that the case?
So my answer is that the procedure will not out of the rules. We use the same procedure, now we are continuing to do the same.
Then that is not unanimity. Can I have clarification? What you're adopting now by asking for objections is not unanimity.
Yes. Yes. It is correct.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. So, please, United States, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to speak in favor of the amendment and to observe that the rapporteur is correct.
Excuse me. First, we have to just consider whether to put on the agenda or not. Then we will consider. I mean, we will vote for or against. So please,
I thought we had just done that.
To consider that, we adopted that we can consider, but afterwards we will propose the amendment as it is, and then we will start to debate. Is it correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Are there any objections to considering the oral amendment? No objections. Thank you. I think I call Ms. Kauma to propose her oral amendment to Amendment 41. Please, Madam Kauma, you have the floor.
All right, thank you, Chair. Instead of replacing the phrase that was originally in place, I would like to add that Amendment 41.
So, are there any objections to the oral amendment being adopted? No. The oral amendment is adopted, and we proceed to consider Amendment 41 as amended. Now, Amendment 41. Does anyone wish to speak against Amendment 41 as amended? No one. What is the rapporteur, Ms. Kauma's opinion about that? I think, yeah, it is your amendment. It is fine. Now I shall put Amendment 41 as amended to the vote. Will all those in favor of Amendment 41 as amended, please raise your voting cards.
Yeah, but this should be, this is what you should be.
Okay, thank you very much. Will all those against, please raise your voting cards.
Nobody.
No one is against? Mr. Batelli.
What's the problem?
Any abstentions?
The problem is that?
No, because so it's
One abstention. The oral amendment is adopted.
Sorry, the amendment number 41 is
Yeah, yeah.
Amendment
Amendment 41 is adopted. Amendment 42. I call Mr. Harsted of Sweden to propose Amendment 42. Please, sir, you have the floor.
Dear colleagues, the Arctic region is in danger. We must be aware of the fact that this region is most vulnerable in the light of the ongoing very rapid climate change and the military escalation in the area. Already the Arctic has seen powerful warships of Russia's Northern Fleet taking place in the north, strategic bomber patrols and airborne troop exercises. In fact, military forces have been permanently stationed in the Arctic now for a year. I therefore urge the states to work even stronger for peace and security through the Arctic Council and to continue the peaceful process according to international law. So that's why I've suggested the following amendment to the resolution in the first committee. Noting the military escalation in the Arctic region during the last years and along with the substantial progress that has been made to strengthen the Arctic cooperation, urges member states to closely monitor the military escalation in the Arctic region, be aware of the potential security risk that it constitutes, and continue to strive for a zone of peace and stability in the Arctic. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against Amendment 42? No one. Russian Federation, please, you have the floor.
Уважаемый господин председатель, уважаемые коллеги, вы знаете, вот создается впечатление, что авторы и многих поправок, да и текста исходят из каких-то субъективных своих собственных видений. Вот дух, какая-то методология фобии господствует в этом зале. Мы знаем прекрасно не одно заседание Арктического совета, в котором эти вопросы рассматривались. Мы обращаемся к ним в рамках программ сотрудничества ЕС «Северные измерения» и многие другие. Но надо проявлять какую-то ответственность, когда мы используем такие слова, как эскалация, аннексия, санкции и многие-многие другие. Российская Федерация действует в соответствующих секторах в соответствии с своим суверенитетом, в соответствии с своей международной правосубъектностью. Нет там этой эскалации, нет там угрозы мира. Прошу не поддерживать эту поправку и быть весьма ответственным, призываю своих коллег к формулированию идей и предложений в этом зале. Спасибо.
Thank you very much. Now, I call Madam Kaumas for her opinion. What's your opinion of that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in favor of this amendment, but there is only one word I'm really thinking about and maybe questioning also, and that's escalation. I would rather use the word presence or some other kind of word, so I'm asking, would it be possible for Mr. Hasted to change that word?
Reluctantly, yes.
Okay, we will follow the same procedure. Madam Pia Kauma just suggested oral amendment. So anyone against this oral amendment to be considered? No objection. So we can put this to the vote as amended. Is it right?
So now...
No, point of order.
Now vote on the... yeah, now...
Point of order.
Oral amendment. Speak against the oral amendment.
Okay, now I'd like to ask you whether anybody wants to speak against this oral amendment. Please, you have the floor.
I thought you clarified the procedure earlier, is that once an oral amendment was accepted in principle, then we vote on the oral amendment itself, not just ask if nobody objects.
Yeah, you are right. We will do it now. Okay. Thank you very much. Now I shall put Amendment 42.
The oral amendment first.
Okay. Is there any objection to the oral amendment? No. Okay, let me vote. Will all those in favor of...
Chairman, vote on the oral amendment and then take Amendment 41.
Yeah, we do the same.
He wants to know where...
Yeah, I asked. Okay. Okay, any objections? No objections. I shall now put Amendment 42 as amended to the vote. Please, will all those in favor of Amendment 42 as amended, please raise your voting cards. Thank you. Will all those against, please raise your voting cards. Thank you. Any abstentions? One abstention, two abstentions. The Amendment 42 as amended is adopted. Now I move on Amendment 43. Oral amendment proposed again by Rapporteur, Ms. Kauma. Madam Kauma, just you tell what it's about, and afterwards we will come to the content.
Continue, we must consider.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's about the fact that as many of OSCE countries are not members of the European Union, I wanted to just add one word, actually two, and beyond, in Europe and beyond.
Thank you very much. The effect of the oral amendment would be to leave the paragraph in place but change some words. Under the rules of procedure, we must consider the original amendment first, as it is suppressive. If the amendment is carried and paragraph is deleted, then Ms. Kauma's oral amendment falls. If the original amendment is defeated, we then proceed to consider the oral amendment. So I call Mr. Kostunov of Russia to propose Amendment 43. Please, you have the floor, sir.
Спасибо, господин председатель. Вот, уважаемые коллеги, мы ранее приняли поправку, заменили слова «украинского кризиса» на словами «кризиса в Украине и вокруг нее». Но вокруг Украины Европа. Таким образом, мы этой поправкой констатировали, что кризис на самом деле происходит в Европе, и даже сегодня мы сидим в этом зале, а десятки, а может сотни людей погибают на юго-востоке Украины. В связи с этим, фактически с военным противостоянием на Украине, гражданской войной, и понятно, что эта война имеет отношение к евроинтеграции, введение санкций, препятствия свободы передвижения, углубление экономических связей, не позволяют в данной резолюции как-либо приветствовать некий, ну, цитирую, процесс мирной интеграции в Европе. Поэтому все-таки российская делегация просит снять этот пункт. Это будет как минимум констатация этой ситуации, которая сегодня есть.
Thank you very much. Does anyone wish to speak against Amendment 43? Please, Vila, you have the floor.
Dear colleagues, I'm really surprised why Russia has something against peaceful integration processes in Europe and beyond. Until now, we have been thinking that Russia is a strategic partner of the European Union. Recent events taught us that Russia thinks to be perhaps an enemy of the European Union, something new and very strange. And I don't think that what's going on in Ukraine could be called as a civil war. Everybody knows that the situation differs from this definition, civil war. But we are going to discuss these matters tomorrow. I think that oral amendment proposed by our colleague Pia Kauma is a compromise. A real compromise, because I could ask what peaceful processes of integration are taking place beyond Europe. If somebody thinks that events in Donetsk is an example of peaceful integration beyond Europe, I have doubts about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I ask Ms. Kauma's opinion of that amendment. Please, Madam Kauma, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Talking about the paragraph number 25, I would like to keep the paragraph, but like I said, I would like to add 2 words in the first phrase, in Europe and beyond.
Okay, thank you. So let me make clear a little bit. If Amendment 43 is adopted and the oral amendment falls, if defeated, then oral amendments will be considered, will be voted. Is it correct? Thank you very much. So, will all those in favor of Amendment 43 please raise your voting cards? Thank you. Will all those against please raise your voting cards? Thank you. Are there any abstentions? So, Amendment 43 is defeated, and we proceed to consider the oral amendment. The oral amendment can only be considered if there is no objection. In addition, the amendment will only be adopted if there is no objection. If any objections to consideration or adoption are taken, the oral amendment will fall. Are there any objections to the oral amendment being considered? No. If no, we are going to consider the oral amendment. I call Ms. Kauma to propose the oral amendment to Amendment 43. Please, you have the floor.
Dear Mr. Chair, once more, instead of deleting the paragraph, a small adjustment as follows: in Europe and beyond.
Does anyone want to speak against the oral amendment? Sorry, that's missed out. Anyone against the oral amendment?
Does anyone wish to speak against this oral amendment?
Non, non, non.
Non?
Monsieur le Président, c'est un point d'ordre. Maintenant que nous avons adopté la présentation de l'amendement de Mme Kauma, que Mme Kauma l'a présenté, vous le soumettez au vote et une majorité simple suffira pour adopter cet amendement. Ça, c'est clair.
Mr. Neri, please help me to handle. So, the decision we made that, I am just repeating several times, when we consider the oral amendment, we should have consensus. Yes, is it right? When we go into the adoption of this particular oral amendment, we also need what? Consensus.
That's what we did this morning. Well, this morning
that's what we did just this morning. This is why we don't have to change or to go a little bit different direction. So please help us to handle this. Okay, thank you very much. Latvia, please.
I think we just voted on an oral amendment and passed it with majority vote.
The amendment, and it was
Yes,
An
we
amended
didn't vote for
amendment.
oral amendment. We just voted for Amendment 43, which was defeated. So,
But prior to that, we voted for an amendment which was amended, and we passed it with majority, no?
done.
yeah, we have already did it. Okay, we have already done. Okay, I now call, are there any objection to the oral amendment being adopted? Any objection?
Chairman, it's bad enough that you're not looking at genuine unanimity in terms of accepting an oral amendment, but now you're not even taking a vote on whether or not that oral amendment should be voted and supported.
Actually, we put and ask whether anyone wishes to speak against to consideration this amendment or amendment. Nobody object that. So it means that it is about to adopt. So this is why I put this to the vote now. So.
Okay.
Okay. The solution is that if really our distinguished members demands to be voted, we can do that. We will vote for that. If any objection or any abstention, it will mean that this oral amendment falls. Okay. Okay, I'm going on. Okay. Is there any objections? Please raise your voting cards. Against?
No.
Yeah. Is there any one to, is there, will all those who are against this amendment, please vote, please raise your voting cards.
Nobody's against.
Yeah, oral amendment, yes.
Nobody against, it's adopted.
Yeah. Okay, let me do it once again. Will those who are in favor of this oral amendment, please raise your voting cards. In favor? Thank you. Will those who are against this oral amendment, please raise your voting cards? One.
Well, hang on.
Against? Yes. Any abstentions? No. Then the oral amendment is defeated.
Yes, because there was objection. There was a.
Thank you very much. Okay. Amendment. No.
So we need.
Ja, dat is echt.
Okay, now we move on Amendment 44. I call Mr. Struitsky of Russia to propose Amendment 44. Please, so you have the floor.
Sorry. Yes.
Okay, please.
Je voudrais bien stipuler que dans l'article 22 du règlement, point 10, c'est clairement marqué pour prendre donc en considération un amendement oral, en considération. Pour cela, c'est vrai, il faut l'unanimité. Mais après, comme l'a dit aussi le collègue de la France, c'est la procédure normale. Donc, l'amendement qu'a proposé Madame Kauma est adopté. C'est adopté avec une majorité.
So I'm sorry, I can't accept this, this point because what we discussed and came into agreement and conclusion in the morning, the procedure and the regulation is very clear. Now we are just following that. So please, please, please.
I ask to have a break and that you discuss it because you cannot change the rules. The rules are very clear here.
We don't change rules.
No, you are changing the rules. They are here on paper. So I asked to apply the rules such as they are written here. So, but it's just about 2 words, but it's about the principle also. Les règles sont très claires, même s'il s'agit de 2 mots, c'est pas que ça fait un... Mais c'est le principe. On ne change pas les règles écrites sont là. Donc je ne suis pas d'accord.
Okay, Spain, you have the floor.
Señor presidente, con todos mis respetos, esto es un desastre. Nosotros somos todos parlamentarios. En nuestros países tenemos reglamentos que permiten hacer votaciones en las que por lo menos sepamos qué es lo que estamos votando. Aquí no sabemos qué estamos votando. Normalmente, cuando se quiere cambiar el orden del día de una sesión o introducir una enmienda in voce, es cuando se necesita la unanimidad. Si alguien no quiere cambiar el orden del día o admitir una enmienda in voce, ahí es cuando se requiere la unanimidad. Pero después, una vez que se admite el cambio, se vota como cualquier otra enmienda, con síes, noes y abstenciones. Y si hay más síes, se aprueba, y si hay noes, no se aprueba. Esto es un desastre, señor presidente.
I suggest to have a 5 minutes break to discuss it. It is the best way of getting some solution to that. Okay, thank you. 5 minutes break.
Ha, bir de benim başa sağ olsun. Ben postu çəkilişdəyəm, çıxa bilmirəm. Böyük tədbir var. ATF tədbiri oradayım. Tamam, sağ olsun.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. So, I'm sorry for this, misunderstanding, because it is really a little bit, maybe complicated, or there was some misunderstanding among our distinguished colleagues. What was the result of our discussions that when we will consider oral amendment, we will need consensus. When we will vote for, then we will need majority. Is it okay? Correct? Bravo. Now, this is a time to put the oral amendment to the vote. Again, just for being, for clarification, for being clear on that. So, will all those against, will all those in favor of this oral amendment, please raise your voting cards. Thank you very much. Will all those against this oral amendment please raise your voting cards? Any abstentions? No. Thank you very much. The oral amendment is adopted. Now, we are starting from Amendment 44. I call Mr. Slutsky of Russia to propose Amendment 44. Please, sir, you have the floor.
Уважаемый господин председатель, уважаемые коллеги, мы предлагаем эту поправку, имея в виду ее способность развить позитивные моменты, изложенные в проекте пункта 25. И хочу подчеркнуть, что принятие этой поправки именно в такой редакции будет в какой-то степени способствовать прекращению той санкционной лихорадки, которая развернута сегодня в международных отношениях, в том числе и в Европе, санкционная лихорадка, которая совершенно очевидно для большинства наших избирателей носит антироссийский, русофобский характер. Прошу поддержать.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against Amendment 44? Yes, please, from Ukraine.
Спасибо, господин председатель. Уважаемые коллеги, если не вести войну, то есть только ограниченные мирные способы для того, чтобы указать агрессору, указать тем, кто нарушает международное право, нарушает Хельсинкские соглашения, нарушает устав Организации Объединенных Наций, что так делать нельзя. Что предлагается? Предлагается, что та или иная страна может становиться, я не говорю о России, я говорю в принципе, это же принципы. Та или иная страна может становиться, и это нормально, объектом санкций мирового сообщества или европейского сообщества для того, чтобы не прибегать к силовым методам. Понимаете? То есть это метод давления во имя соблюдения международного права. Поэтому в этом есть логика, согласитесь со мной. Спасибо.
Thank you. Now I ask Madam Kauma for her opinion. Please, Madam Kauma, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand truly what you mean by this amendment, but I still think that since OSCE does not use sanctions itself, the reason is that OSCE doesn't have sanctions in its collection of different means. Therefore, I don't think that this kind of phrase or amendment is needed within OSCE, and therefore I'm against it.
Thank you, Pia. Now I shall put Amendment 44 to the vote. Will all those in favor of Amendment 44 please raise your voting cards?
I have 7.
Okay, thank you. Will all those against this Amendment 44 please raise your voting cards? Thank you. Any abstentions? Any abstentions? No. The Amendment 44 is defeated. Amendment 45. I call Mr. Gumniski of Belarus to propose his Amendment 45. Please, you have the floor.
Уважаемые коллеги, мы предлагаем дополнить проект резолюции пунктом об интеграции. Главная идея – это конструктивное взаимодействие различных интеграционных объединений, недопущение их противостояния друг другу, которое несет угрозу возникновения новых разделительных линий. Процесс интеграции продолжается, и мы это должны иметь в виду. Интеграция позволит обеспечить более тесные и равноправные отношения евроатлантического и евразийского сообщества единой и неделимой безопасности. В целях устранения разделительных линий и предотвращения возникновения новых барьеров на общеевропейском пространстве необходима дальнейшая работа по гармонизации интеграционных процессов и обеспечению свободы передвижения. Поэтому мы предлагаем именно с этой целью эту поправку. Спасибо.
Thank you very much. Does anyone wish to speak against this Amendment 45? No one. So, Madam Pia Kauma, what's your opinion of that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a very difficult one, I must admit, because integration is, as an intention, it's a very good one. But I think the way it's put here, it is too complicated to be had in a declaration. And therefore, I must say that I'm against it.
Thank you. Now, I shall put Amendment 45 to the vote. Will all those in favor of Amendment 45, please raise your voting cards. Thank you. Will all those against this Amendment 45? Any abstentions? The Amendment 45 is defeated. Now, Amendment 46. I call Mr. Lebedev of Russia to propose Amendment 46. Please, sir, you have the floor.
Спасибо, господин председатель. Уважаемые коллеги, вы знаете, что в Сирии после выборов президента ситуация в целом начала стабилизироваться, но при этом не прекращается проявление насилия и нарушения прав человека со стороны международных террористических организаций. И я просил бы поддержать коллегами в данном случае в пункте 26 изменения и дополнения словами «и проявление международного терроризма». Спасибо. Прошу поддержать.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against Amendment 46? No one. So please, Madam Kama, what's your opinion of that?
Dear Mr. Chair, I accept it.
Thank you. Now I shall put Amendment 46 to the vote. Will all those in favor of Amendment 46 please raise your voting cards? Thank you. Will all those against this Amendment 46 please raise your voting cards? No. Any abstentions? No. No abstentions. So the Amendment 46 is adopted. Now, Amendment 47. I call Mr. Gegemyan of Armenia to propose his Amendment 47. Please, sir, you have the floor.
Уважаемые коллеги, недавно выступил наш американский коллега, очень гневно возмущался тем, что происходит убийство на религиозной почве в Сирии. Убивают в том числе и христиан. Поэтому армянская делегация в пункте 26 после слова «этнических» добавит слова «и религиозных». Спасибо.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against this Amendment 47? No one. So, Madam Pia Kauma, what's your opinion of that?
Mr. Chair, I'm in favor.
Thank you. Now I shall put Amendment 47 to the vote. Will all those in favor of Amendment 47 please raise your voting cards? Thank you. Will all those against please raise your voting cards? 1, 2. Any abstentions? So Amendment 47 is adopted. Now, Amendment 48. I call Mr. Gegemyan of Armenia to propose his Amendment 48. Please, sir, you have the floor.
Армянская делегация предлагает добавить в пункт 6 следующее предложение. Призывает государства-участников ОБСЕ предотвращать использование их территорий террористическими и фундаменталистскими группами. Далее по тексту. Эта поправка обусловлена тем, что события, разворачивающиеся сейчас в Ираке, исламским государством Ирака и Леванта, а также сообщения в ведущих средствах массовой информации мира, очень много убедительных фактов, подтверждающих, что на стороне боевиков, аффилированных с Аль-Каидой, воюют также и граждане, которые являются гражданами региона ОБСЕ. Именно с учетом этого мы внесли эту поправку. Спасибо.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against Amendment 48? No one. Now, Mrs. Karma, what's your opinion of that?
Mr. Chair, I'm in favor.
Thank you. Now I shall put Amendment 48 to the vote. Will all those in favor of Amendment 48 please raise your voting cards? Thank you. Against? Abstentions? No one. The Amendment 48 is adopted. Now I call Mr. Gegemian of Armenia to propose his Amendment 49. Please, sir, you have the floor.
Армянская делегация руководствовалась тем соображением, что, к сожалению, парламентская ассамблея ОБСЕ, она не вправе толковать резолюции, в частности, Генеральной ассамблеи ООН, Совета Безопасности ООН. И поэтому мы предлагаем вывести этот пункт с обсуждения с целью дальнейшей детализации, чтобы не получилось, мы берем на себя функции, которые отнюдь не входят в нашу компетенцию. Спасибо.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against this amendment? 49? No one? Please, Karma, what's your opinion of that?
Dear Mr. Chair, I would not like to delete the paragraph number 28. I think it would be indeed a good idea to have a system of arbitration and get use of that in order to avoid crisis areas.
Thank you. I shall now put Amendment 49 to the vote. Will all those in favor of Amendment 49 please raise your voting cards? Thank you. Will all those against this Amendment 49 please raise your voting cards? Are there any abstentions? Any abstentions? 1, 2. So amendment number 49 is defeated. So thank you very much for cooperation. We have concluded the consideration of the amendments, which were about 49. Now, I would like to give the information about that vote on the draft resolution. I propose that we now formally move to the vote on the draft resolution as amended. Would those in favor of adopting the draft resolution please raise your voting cards? Thank you. Would those against please raise your voting cards?
Raise your voting cards, not your.
Okay, thank you. Are there any abstentions? 1. So the draft resolution is adopted. I want to congratulate you. Thank you. Finally, we finished. We accomplished it. Thank you for your cooperation and understanding, of course, or patience as well. Now we are moving on, consideration of some supplementary items. Supplementary items. This committee has been tasked by the Standing Committee to debate and consider 4 supplementary items. We will take these supplementary items in the following order. The development of mediation capacity, proposed by Mr. Koskinen from Finland. Regional cooperation in South-East Europe, proposed by Mr. Batelli from Slovenia. The fight against terrorism, proposed by Mr. Kovalyov from Russian Federation. The OSCE's further engagement with Afghanistan, proposed by Mr. Önen from Turkey. I remind delegates who wish to speak in the debates on the draft resolutions to give their names to the committee secretary as earlier in each debate as possible. I remind members that interventions in the debate on each draft resolution should be kept to 5 minutes. Is it okay? Okay, thank you very much. Now, draft resolution on the development of mediation capacity. I call on Mr. Koskinen to introduce the draft resolution. Please, Mr. Koskinen, you have the floor. Mr. Koskinen is here.
Yes, but the microphone doesn't work.
Okay, we have some problem with the microphone, please. Anybody can help, please? Maybe you take, yes, this microphone? Yes, please.
Mr. Chair, as we noticed, we actually need maybe some judicial mediation also in this Parliamentary Assembly to find the right rules of procedure. But this supplementary item deals with activities that the Parliamentary Assembly could enhance. As we have noticed during this crisis in and around Ukraine, the OSCE has been active. The Swiss presidency has been active in starting with new methods also to try to solve very difficult international crisis. In the Parliamentary Assembly, we should also develop new methods in avoiding new crises, in solving old ones, and to have a better active role in the international arena. So I don't read this whole resolution. I just want to stress that it means that we should develop our own...
Excuse me, could you please pay attention? Thank you very much.
We should develop our own capabilities in the Parliamentary Assembly and have also new working methods that we could have a better say in what is happening in Europe, in our regions, in the whole of OSCE regions. So in this recommendation, we recommend the development of a civilian and reaction capability that could be deployed in times of crisis to supplement the work of the field operations, and that could assist in assessing the situation and the needs and make policy recommendations to the OSCE executive bodies for future actions. This means that we should have more real cooperation between the parliamentary branch and the executive branch of the OSCE. And as a working method in the last paragraph 12, we propose the establishment of an ad hoc contact group on mediation in the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly for cooperation with the relevant OSCE executive structures. And this, we have noticed that in the OSCE there has been started a Friends of Mediation group, like there is one in the United Nations, and this is kind of a counterpart for this intergovernmental working structure. So this is what I wanted to say about the draft resolution, and wish to have your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Koskinen. Now debate on the resolution is open. We have one speaker so far in our list, Mr. Garbowski from Poland.
Thank you.
From Poland, please, you have
Thank
the
you,
floor, sir.
Mr. Chair, dear colleague. The Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe enlarged its activity by last 40 years due to be changing political environment in Europe. The role of the Parliamentary Assembly to give the organization new direction and input to its work. However, while exciting, our role we have be our avoiding overlapping not only with the other international organizations, but especially with ourselves due to the limited excuse we have. Having said the above, I would like to support the draft resolution of the development of a meditation capacity in the OSCE area as proposed by Mr. Johansson Koskinen of Finland. Conflicts between different parties might be avoided. Talk about negotiated, arbitrated, adjudicated, solved by legislation, by political action, or by violent force. Parties who cannot negotiate together effectively might bring a mediator to facilitate the negotiation process. Mediation, when defined as intervention, is a standard negotiation of conflict of the acceptable third party who has limited or authoritative decision-making power, but who assists the involved parties in voluntarily reaching mutually acceptable settlement of issues dispute. Is my personal opinion, extremely effective way of conflict resolution. Therefore, it's our duty to speak for a method allowing to avoid any conflict in the OSCE area, despite its social, legal, or political one. While supporting the draft resolution, I would like to ask principal sponsor, Honorable Johansson Koskinen, to explain what he does mean by drafting the following. I quote, "Development of civilian reaction capability that could be deployment in times of crisis to supplement the work of the field operation." I would be very much grateful to Mr. Koskinen for his explanation how it fits with the already existing rapid experts, assistance and cooperation teams. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now we will move to consider the amendment. Yeah, before. Okay, you have something to add? Yes, please.
Thank you. As an answer to the Polish question, just a few years ago we had this so-called Palermo paper on how to develop the working methods of the Parliamentary Assembly of the OSCE. There was some ideas about having groups of parliamentarians in making kind of ad hoc visits to different countries or conflict areas. And just nowadays we have these very well-organized election observation missions. We could have maybe something like that, collect a group of parliamentarians from different countries who are expertise in certain case or certain area, and that kind of civilian and reaction capability is what this phrase in chapter 10 means. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we will excuse me. Now we will move to please, from Portugal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to support fully the supplementary item of our colleague. I would say that we are a very relevant organization. We must have a very relevant role in the world. The world now has a lot of defies, new languages, new players, new challenges, and we have to understand that we have to get new answers. You, in your resolution, dear colleague, you stress the relevant role of the current chairmanship of OSCE. he was really very relevant in what concerns the conflict in and around Ukraine. And I must stress too that we were not so relevant, but we have to cooperate more and more. That's why I fully support your opinion about that. We have to remember always that many situations, extreme situations, all along history could be avoided if people or relevant people, politicians at that time, would have been able to find new ways to, new ways to answer to the challenges of the moment. Many conflicts, many wars could be avoided if there were more mediation capacity, more dialogue, and now I think it's very important to get these instruments in our daily behavior in our organization. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone wish to speak or to participate in the debate? No one else? Thank you very much. Mr. Rapporteur, you have something to add? Any clarification? Okay. Thank you very much. So now we will move to consider the amendment submitted to the draft resolution. One amendment has been tabled and the copy of it has been made available. The correct version is numbered SC14 SI6 amend. I shall allow the proposer of the amendment to speak for maximum of 1 minute. I will then allow the same time to an opponent of the amendment. I will then ask the sponsor of the draft resolution, Mr. Koskinen, for his opinion. I will then put the amendment to the vote. Amendment 1. I call Mr. Gariskan of Turkey, Çalışkan of Turkey to propose her amendment. Please, or Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
The Mediation for Peace initiative was launched by Turkey and Finland in September 2010 within the United Nations. Friends for Mediation Group was formed within the United Nations in 2010 and also within the OSCE in 2014. This initiative was spearheaded by Finland and Turkey. It was a mutual effort and we believe this fact should be taken note of in this important supplementary item. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against this amendment? No one. What is the opinion of our sponsor, please? You have the floor.
Mr. Chair, I'm in favor of the amendment as it was read.
Thank you very much. Now I shall put the amendment to the vote. Will all those in favor of the amendment please raise your voting cards? Favor? Thank you. Will all those against this amendment please raise your voting cards? Thank you. Any abstentions? 1. The amendment is adopted. I propose that we now formally move to the vote on the draft resolution as amended. Would those in favor of adopting the draft resolution please raise your voting cards? Thank you. Would those against please raise your voting cards? 1. Any abstentions? No abstention. So the draft resolution is adopted. Congratulations. Dear colleagues, dear ladies and gentlemen, I am so grateful for such a close cooperation. I think we did really a great job. And today's meeting was very fruitful. So I am going to close meeting for today, and we will come together and gather once again tomorrow at 11:30. But we will announce about the venue. Thank you very much.